Hi there. Welcome to Bourbon Turntable. This is the show that blends the love of music with the love of whiskey. Tonight, we're going to be talking about supporting local musicians, supporting local whiskeys. So, we've got some things we're going to taste. We've got some musicians we're going to talk to, and I'll introduce them to you in just 1 minute. But first, I want to tell you about Bar Cart Co-op. Bar Cart Co-op is a collection of friends who produce content for the whiskey enthusiast. Shows like Distillers Talk with Alan Bishop and Christy Atkinson. Alan and Christy will talk with distillers from across the country and around the world about anything and everything in terms of distillation. Alan also has a show called One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. If you're a distiller, maybe that's your occupation. Maybe you're just doing it in your backyard. Whatever the case, if you've got a question about it, ask Alan. Send him a message, ask him your question. He'll post a video response so we all can learn from your curiosity. Alan also has a show called If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. This is not a whiskey show. It is about, yes, ghosts and the paranormal and the supernatural and the spiritual and you name it. Alan's going to cover it there. It's a lot of fun, has some very interesting guests. My Whiskey Den with Pat and Mike and Mitch comes on every Monday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, live. Check out My Whiskey Den, where craft whiskey is king. They have some wonderful guests. They have a lot of fun in the chat, so be sure to check them out. Whiskey in My Wedding Ring with David Levine. David is an excellent writer, so check out his blog. He also has a podcast where he'll interview distillers about the stuff they make. Then there's our show. If you're watching us right now on YouTube, would love it if you would just hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on a single episode. We are also on your favorite podcast platforms. And more about that later. But we've got guests that we need to talk to. First of all, in the lower screen is Mr. Zeno Jones. Zeno, welcome to Bourbon Turntable.
Good evening, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And Earl Bowman to my, well, as I'm looking at my screen, it's to my right, but I think it's to my left. I don't know. The other guy, up here with me is Earl Bowman. Earl, welcome to Bourbon Turntable.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I do a podcast too, so it's exciting to actually come on other people's stuff from time to time. So thank you for having me.
Well, don't judge me too harshly.
No, this I'm stoked to be here.
All right. Well, we're talking supporting local, and we're going to talk with them about their music. They're outstanding local musicians here in Louisville and somewhat beyond, but we'll get into that. But we're also wanting to talk about some whiskey as we usually do. And guys, you've got some samples there. One has a white rubber band around it, so we'll start with that. And that is this Buzzard's Roost Cigar Rye. Now, Buzzard's Roost is a brand that's been around for 5 years, based here in Louisville. They have a tasting experience on Whiskey Row, 625 Main Street in Louisville. And, if you're a fan of a local brand of whiskey, support them. First, of course, buy their product. Order it when you're at a bar, because if you order it at a bar, the bartender is going to notice and they're going to order more of it. Visit the distillery, visit their tasting room, support that way. Follow them on social media, post reviews of what you're tasting, post photos of it, like it, share it, comment, all that good stuff. And you're an influencer. Tell your friends, share it with your friends. If you're having a get together and, hey, we're all having different pours of different things and you're sharing bottles, pull out a bottle of something local. I mean, in my little bourbon group, this gets heavy rotation because it's outstanding and it's local. So enough of that. Let's drink some, guys. Cheers, gentlemen. So what they do with this, just FYI, is they take a new, this whiskey's been aged in a regular charred oak barrel for a few years. And then they take it, they dump it out of that barrel, and they put it in a barrel that's been infused with tobacco smoke. And that's where you get that smoky rye flavor to it. What do you
I
think?
was waiting on it to show up, and I'm surprised that it came in at the end, kind of like it did.
Yeah.
And it kind of lingers in a very satisfying way.
Yeah. Yeah. Earl, I know you're a whiskey guy. What do you think?
Oh yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I had some of this with you at the Monarch,
You did.
and it blew me away that time because it was not. I never tasted a whiskey like this. Like Zeno said, it kind of hits you at the end and is like in a way that is very very satisfying. Not something that this is, I drink Jim Beam. This is definitely a step up from what I'm normally sipping on. So I was really excited that was part of the reason I was super excited to come on here, is because I knew we were about to drink some good stuff. Definitely more than the Jim Beam. I usually just drink the Black Label. I don't I don't drink anything like this.
Nothing wrong with Jim Beam Black Label. Not a thing.
Jim Beam Black Label has gotten a lot of work done for a lot of people, so
it will do the job, as they say.
Yes.
So, Zeno, are you a local Louisville guy, born and bred?
Yeah. I've lived here my whole life. I did music. I started trying it about 10, 15 years ago back, and I gave it another shot like 3 or 4, and that's where I gained a little bit more traction. Yeah, but I've been around town for a long time.
Yeah. Where did you go to high school?
Ballard.
Oh, okay. When did you graduate?
06.
06. Okay. You're a little ahead of my kids. I had 2 sons that went to Ballard. So anyway, that's cool.
Oh, okay.
Love it. Okay. So the fact that you've only been really picking up music again for the last 3 or 4 years, that to me is remarkable. Because when I hear you play, I mean, it's just very impressive. And I actually, and honestly, when I see you play live, it's quite exhausting. Because you are working hard. And we'll get a little bit more into that style in just a second. But Earl, how about you? Are you a Louisville guy?
Yep. Lived in J-Town most of my life until here recently. Now I'm in Germantown, but always Louisville, except for a couple years I was away at school. But otherwise, born and raised here.
Yeah. And where'd you go to high school?
I went to a little school nobody's really ever heard of in J-Town called the Academy for Individual Excellence, and I graduated with like 40 kids. No one's ever heard of this school, but I went there. It exists, and it's in J-Town. It was a cool place. Played some sports there. Met my wife there, so can't complain too much about it.
It got, like we said about Jim Beam, that did the job too.
Got it done.
Got you educated, got you married. So there you go. Now, when did you first take up music, Earl?
Like as far as seriously, just in the last few years, like in 2019 or so, I started going to open mics, and I guess it was actually 2020. It was right before COVID. Otherwise, I picked up the guitar in high school, and like I could play some chords. It was mostly just to do covers, to try to be funny, to like play some like pop songs on the acoustic guitar to try to impress girls or whatever. But as far as taking it seriously as writing, I went to college, and a few times I kept dropping out, but I played baseball, and I finally decided I wanted to write some tunes, and I'm a simple man. I write simple songs, and so I wrote a couple simple tunes, and it kind of just went from there.
I think simple is that would not be how I'd characterize your writing. I think you're a very clever writer, and there's a bit of wit to it. And often, when I'm hearing you play, I'm laughing and shaking my head at the same time, because it's just some of the lyrics are just so funny, but they're so real. And I really enjoy your music. It's a little country, a little swampy. If you said song a few more times, it'd be Jerry Reed.
I love Jerry. I mean, that's like my big influence on writing. So
right here is the Smokey and the Bandit soundtrack. just for you.
Uh,
And when I first thought that, the first time I heard you, we hadn't talked yet, and I thought, man, that just reminds me of Jerry Reed. And I thought, okay, is a young guy going to be, one, is he going to know who Jerry Reed is, and two, if he does, is he going to be offended by that? But I think I heard you actually mention it during the course of conversation. So I appreciate the fact that you not only get that reference, but embrace it as well.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all that you said because, like I said, I think of my music as simple, but I like Jerry. I think he's funny, but it's hard to kind of toe the line between funny and silly, and I try not to cross it. If I don't try to be too clever, but I'm glad you like the music. It means a lot. I mean, a lot of people have talked good about you. I know Drew has said many good things. I'm just glad to be here. So thank you for the kind words.
Well,
And
you're
Zeno, just
very
while
welcome.
we're on it, I mean, I think you're great too. Geez, I was telling, but before we started, I mean, as far as blue stuff and even beyond that, solo acts, there's not really many people that put on a solo thing like you do. It's incredible. So if you haven't seen Zeno and you're listening to this, he plays all the time. Check him out.
Well, and sorry, my headphones just, I don't know how bad my audio is now. People can hear me. I dropped in and came back out. But Earl, you say your stuff is simple, and I tell people that all the time about my stuff. I'm playing and maybe it's like from a structure standpoint, it's you and I are very much the same school where we come from. What is it? It's 3 chords and the truth.
Yeah.
We're definitely on that school as far as opposed to like being really heavily in theory. But you write these songs that really, there's a very fine line between like a parody song and a song that's serious, and you're right on that line, that kind of that old school country kind of that you really don't see anymore. It's like a good taste in like the humor that you put in, and then also there's all this relatability, and it's like when Kevin said you're kind of laughing and also kind of shaking your head, like a lot of like, man, we've all been there, which is the mark of, I think, good country songs.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. So it means a lot.
Yeah. So kind of staying on the songwriting side of it, Zeno, first let me show everybody. This is you and your setup. Right. And so if you can see the picture, kind of describe what we're seeing here, how you're setting this whole thing up.
So I have out my resonator guitar, and I'm basically plugged. I plug directly into a tube amp, so I don't use any pedals. I use a tuner, but I don't use any modification pedals. And then that it's a suitcase that I have hooked up a drum kit, a drum pedal to. I think I screwed in a door hinge on the edge of it, and then it's just a hi-hat with tambourines on the other foot.
Yeah. So you're playing with both feet, and obviously both hands, and then you're singing as well. Yeah. So when you're writing songs, are you writing them just because obviously you've got to write based on, okay, here, how can I play this? And so do you ever run into things where, well, I would like to do this, but I can't because I only have 2 hands and 2 feet?
To be honest, that happens a lot less with my writing. I feel like, I don't know if I've, absentmindedly trained myself into, I just kind of write things that will work for my setup. What's a real big deal is when I'm trying to learn things. So when I'm trying to get covers. So you've seen me do a 20-minute set at Stevie Ray's. I usually am out for 3 hours playing at bars, and I'm playing either mostly originals, and the blues that I'm playing are very, like stuff like before the 60s is what I'm covering. So no one really knows any of it. So I'm trying to get more stuff that people at least can be like, oh, I know that song. And it's really hard to, like, if someone comes up and like, oh, you should play Allman Brothers, and I'm like, that'd be really cool, but how do I do that with this? But when I'm writing these songs, for some reason that I don't know why that doesn't come up, but it does.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And you're kind of, well, first of all, it's definitely, you can tell that there's roots in Mississippi Delta blues there. But there's also a little element of White Stripes, and you're both Jack and Meg, or old school Black Keys. Like, all right, here's the big come up. So,
Right.
And your band, Cold Beverage, right?
Oh, you did. Oh, you did a little research.
Look, man, yeah, I'm not messing around here. that I love the sound there, because I love the sound of this, and I wish the Black Keys got back to that, but that ain't never going to happen.
No,
But
too much money.
Well, yeah, it kind of, once they started winning Grammys and they figured out the formula for making hits,
yeah.
Then they came out with Delta Cream a few years ago, and that was incredible. And I thought,
Yeah,
okay, maybe they're getting back to their roots. And
yeah.
no, got to cash that check. But anyway, enough about them. We're talking about you.
Yeah.
I mean, does that fit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I listened to ton of White Stripes, and I actually didn't get into the Black Keys until much later. I don't know why. That took so much longer to get into, but that was a big deal. There's also an element of very old gospel. I just like old music. So stuff before it really got kind of, it's a little cliche to say, but before it got too commercialized, it's just so interesting. It's not the only thing I listen to, but I really like diving in and kind of exploring that, and especially like with Spotify and Apple Music. It's very easy to just go digging and find stuff like that. So I bring a lot of it. There's a guy named Reverend Deadeye, who's a very small performer. He probably has less than 1,000 listeners on Spotify each month. But he is like that. My whole setup is basically based off of him. He came through town once with a band that I really liked, and he played much more gospel than blues. Yeah. He's like 90% gospel with a little bit of blues. I'm like 90% blues with a little bit of gospel, I would say. And the way that he played, it was like I went to church,
Yeah. That old blues style, it can go from singing about Jesus in one song to I killed my old lady because she was cheating in the next song. So,
the drop of a hat.
Yeah. Earl, you've got some music out there. This is one example. That's on me. That came out what, August?
Yeah, right? August or September. I don't remember.
Yeah. And so that's one new single you've got for this year. And I think there's another one, Body on Me, that came out as well.
That came out about a month and a half after that. So yeah. And I have another single coming out here in 2 weeks. So
okay. What will that be?
It is called Wannabe, and it's the title track to my album. And it's it's coming out on the 27th, I believe, that Friday, kind of between Christmas and New Year's. So I was like, Christmas music will be over. Maybe people want to listen to something else. Most people would say not to put something out right around Christmas, but that's part of being independent. You can fail on your own. So I'm going to see how it works.
They need a palate cleanser. They'll need one after.
Yes, they'll be tired of Mariah Carey by then.
Yeah, hopefully,
if they're not already. So
yeah,
that's the B side is All I Want for Christmas Is.
Yes, it is. That is true.
Yeah, I would probably. I know I'd pay for that.
Yeah.
You need to work that into your set, Earl.
Yeah, I'll work it up with the band next week.
Yeah. So speaking of band, only times I've seen you play, you're playing solo acoustic. But when you're recording, what are you just playing guitar? Do you play other instruments, or what all that we hear on when we're listening to? Is that you?
Yeah, and so if you're listening to the singles and all my stuff that's out, it's all studio stuff. And so I have studio musicians. I'm a strummer, and I play acoustic guitar. That's really all I do. I fiddle around on stuff around the house. I've written songs on like the piano and whatnot, but I'm not really a piano player. I'm really just a strummer, and so I play all the acoustic parts are me. I did like a 12-string part, and I did do an electric rhythm on one track on the album, but I mean, I'm a simple good. I keep saying I am a simple man. I really am, and I play simple. I'm pretty simple on my strumming as well. So when I went to the studio, I did hire some people that I was really wanting to work with, and I think they came in and did a good job. So
Yeah.
even if you don't like my voice, I feel like the tracks sound pretty solid.
No, I think they turned out really well. Everything I've heard is fantastic, and
Thank you.
And not to minimize any of that, but I honestly think that your songwriting is outstanding.
Thank you.
I
I
mean,
appreciate that.
I could certainly see if these songs don't hit with you singing them, I could definitely see some country music artists snatching these up and trying to make them work for them.
That means a lot. That's kind of when I honestly, the reason I became like an artist, if you will, was because I wanted to write songs and work on people's stuff and like go to the studio and work on other people's projects. And I realized there's really no way to do that if you're just some dude who's never done anything. And so I was like, I gotta, if I'm gonna do any of that, I have to go out and be an artist. And so that's what I've just over the last couple years of doing this, like 2.5 years, it's really just been to try to just build some credibility and let people know that I am taking it seriously. And the stuff I put out, I want it to sound as good as it can sound. When I do a show, I try to be as fun as I can be and put on a good show. Because I do want just that's all I wanted to do was just work on other people's stuff. And I've been lucky enough to do a couple things. I sing some backing vocals on. I don't know if you know Luke Powers. He's around the Monarch a lot, but I do some backing vocals on his album that's coming out, and that was cool. And that's kind of right. That was one of the coolest things I've ever done in music was asked to do that because I was
Yeah.
like, wow, like I've done enough where someone said I want you to be on my project, and that meant the world to me. And I'm just on a couple tunes, and you can barely hear me. I'm in there, but it was the coolest thing I've done. And so anytime people ask me to do stuff, it just means a lot because that's the reason I wanted to do this was just to work with other people and get to do cool things. And you can't do that when you just sit at home. You have to go out
Yeah.
and do the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So Zeno, you were talking about Reverend Deadeye coming through town and you seeing his show. Was it like you woke up the next day and said, okay, that's what I need to do, and then set about trying to figure it out, or kind of what was the evolution in that?
It was an evolution. So I mean, I saw him and I was like, I was listening to him all the time, but I was never like, oh, I'm gonna do that because that was very early in what I was doing with music. So I still thought I was gonna be, in a band and with other people, not just my 2 feet. And I wanted to.
You ever get in fights with the drummer?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It didn't strike me to do it on my, like I said, I did it when I was back in college, right around that time is when I was playing music before. And then I took like an 8-year break. And I mean, like really, like I didn't even practice. I just kind of, every time I moved apartments or houses, I just carried my guitars. That was as much as I touched them. And then when I started back up, for some reason, I was like, this time I'll just do it with the suitcase drum. And I went back and thought about that. So I don't know why it stuck with me like that.
Yeah. Now, when you were playing back in college, were you playing the resonator then, or were you playing something else?
No, I was playing. That was when I was in cold. That was Cold Beverage. So that was recorded recently, but that's because we did that. That was like a reunion, so to speak. that we did real quick one weekend. But I was playing mostly. I was playing mostly solid body guitar. I did have a guitar I played some slide with.
Yeah.
It was a very, very old parlor guitar that my grandpa had, and it got stepped on up in his attic, and my uncle tried to fix it very poorly with wood glue, and so the bridge, like the action is like down towards like where the bridge is. The action is like literally an inch off of it, so it's almost like a dobro. So I use it for slide.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
That's what I did early on. I didn't have a resonator yet.
That's very cool. Very cool. Now you've got a couple of albums here. The Stonewater Music, and that was what, a couple years ago, I guess, 3 years ago.
Yeah, that was so. You saw me at the Blues Society Challenge.
Yeah,
I won that. I was not expecting to win that. that was kind of the first thing I did back after starting music. And the
Mhm.
last thing I did before my big break, I got last place for the second year in a row. So my goal was just not to get last. And um, and I ended up winning. They give you studio time, and in my mind, I'm like, what am I gonna do? So like I really scrapped together, more songs and put
Yeah.
together that EP so I could record it real fast.
Yeah. It's very, very good. Very well done to be pulled together so quickly. Um,
Yeah,
is that
Jeff Carpenter, who did it at his studio, um, is a he. That's one of the prizes that they'll give winners. Is he for a long time was giving recording time to the winners of that contest, and he did a
yeah,
fantastic job. He was really great to work with.
yeah. And you also did where is it? I think I've got it on here. I think I've got your you did yeah, that's the one. And
Yeah, I
there's
did that. I
yeah,
did that recorded that with the guys at Top Hill. Disillusion Blues I recorded with the guys at Top Hill, Earl's
yeah.
podcast. It was when they were in
Okay.
there it is.
Yeah.
When they were in their old studio. But Brad, I went in and said, "Will you record me?" And he's just like, "Well, you don't require much space, so yeah, we could do that." And we just did it. It's like it's the studio that they do their podcast in. It worked out really well, and that one I got as a finalist in the International Blues Challenge down in Memphis with that, just off of. I don't want to say. I think it cost like a few $100 to record that, and put that together and everything.
Yeah.
And it came out a lot better than I ever would have suspected.
Yeah. And the first track on Disillusion Blues is
Right.
Upton Blues.
Mm-hmm.
The live version of that on Top Hill, that Top Hill EP, that's incredible. I mean, hearing that live is very impressive. But I mean, you were going at such speed with the way you play the guitar, and it felt like that your feet were pushing your fingers
Right.
as you're going through it. And I thought, okay, if he hiccups, this thing is going to be a train running off the tracks.
Right.
Because it is such glorious, frenetic energy in that song, especially when you hear it live. So kudos to you. That's why I'm saying it's hard to believe you've only been doing this again for just a few years, because I think it's very accomplished.
Thank you. It's interesting you mentioned the feet with the speed, because a lot of people, I'm doing a lot of hammer on, hammer offs with the guitar, and that's what people pay attention to.
Mhm.
With the feet, the whole thing is that it's the line is going down to Upton, and I'm running.
Yes.
And that's like that type of feeling. That's the only one of those songs where I'm just like, okay, the action of what I'm doing plays into the song. It's interesting you picked up on
Very
that.
cool.
Right away.
Yeah. And the way you're playing, there's a boom chick boom chick boom chick boom chick.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be. I think it's very confusing to white people on when they're supposed to clap. So it's a real struggle. If you could maybe get Earl up there next to you next time you do a show and let him clap, make sure it's on the 2 and the 4 and not the 1 and the 3, or
Right.
the syncopation of the cymbal or anything. So
yeah. It's the 1 3 or the
and Earl, you've got a live little EP there too. We talked about the Monarch, live at the Monarch. Look at that jacket.
Everyone loves that jacket. That was a gift from my father-in-law. One of my favorite gifts I've ever gotten. I only break that out for special shows, and so yeah.
Do you have a hat that goes with that jacket, or
No, I need a hat.
Yes, you need the hat.
Yeah, I need a hat.
You need the hat.
It might take away from the jacket. I don't know. Might not be worth it.
No, that's very cool. And again, just excellent live work on that. And that was you with your band. And I think you do a really good job as a performer working the crowd, the way you interact, and you seem to feed off the energy of the crowd. Is that a fair statement?
Oh yeah, if the crowd isn't feeling it, I'm not feeling it. I try to we've talked about. I am a fan of Jerry Reed, and he's a funny man, and I feel like he always, when you listen to interviews of him, he'll say above and beyond he's an entertainer, and that's kind of what I want to be. Is I want my performance to be entertaining. I want to interact with the crowd. When I go to a show, I like when people interact with the crowd. I mean, I'm not playing stadiums. I'm playing little rooms where you're face to face with people. I feel like you should interact with them.
Right. Right. So I'll ask you both this: what in what kind of reaction from the crowd is encouraging in what you're playing, and what type of reactions are, or lack of reactions, are annoying? Zeno, anything strike you?
I would rather someone ignore me completely than throw in after a song a couple of. Just let me be background music. You don't have to. If you aren't that into it, that is totally fine. I'm here. I'm getting paid. I'm getting drinks. I'll be happy. You'll be happy. Let's just not. Let's not do the song and dance where you pretend to clap. It's fine. That's worse than just not doing anything.
Right. It's where they've sat there and they've talked with their friend through the whole song, and then it's over, and oh, somebody else clapped. Oh, yes. Yep. And then they go back to whatever their conversation is. Yeah. That's one thing that you really love about the Monarch. The Monarch is you listen and you clap, and you don't chat it up with your neighbor. So
I only played there once, and it was intoxicating to be able to play like that and get that and have that attention paid to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very cool. Earl, how about you? What drives you from the crowd, and what's a turnoff?
Zeno hit it pretty good. There's nothing worse than people not paying attention and then trying to pretend like they give any crap about you. Mm-hmm. But honestly, like, I feel like the best thing a crowd can do is just pay attention. Is if they're engaged and they're watching. Like, if I'm on stage, even if there's 6 or 8 people, if they're watching me and they seem to be having a good time, I'm going to be having a good time. If it's a room full of people and it's a bar gig and everyone's just chit chatting, I'm going to be a little more chill. And so it's definitely when people are watching and having a good time, I'm definitely having a good time, and it's really that easy.
Yeah. Well, I think you both have elements to the way you play, or the songs themselves, that can grab the attention of an audience. And Zeno, that's that energy that comes from so much of your music. I don't see how somebody could sit there and not just be focused, laser focused on what you're doing, because you're working hard. I mean, here you are. This is probably 3 songs into your set, and
I had 2 Resonator songs. So that is I'm seeing how sweaty my head is. I'm hoping that's my second one.
So you're working hard, and it should capture the audience. And Earl, if anybody's just halfway listening to what you're singing, the lyrics and the kind of clever wordplay, it grabs your attention. It really does. And I think that makes both of you unique in terms of musicians, because a lot of people can write songs, a lot of people can play music, but you guys have aspects to your music and to your live performances that a lot of people don't have, that I think helps engage the audience in what you're doing.
Well, there's something, you talk about Earl's music, how he does that. Because I've gone and seen him quite a few times with his band and solo, and I listened to. I was thinking you'd be on my Spotify rap, because I've listened to your EP so much this year. But I think you have this familiarity with the way that you write your songs, and people might get drawn. Kevin, you said something about half listening. They might start half listening,
right,
Earl, but you weave in this originality, this part of it that I don't hear very much in other music, or if it is there, I don't know where to find it. Yeah. And it really I would feel like it would really grab people in. So I think that's something that I would aspire to at some point from somebody local who I've hung out with before and tried to emulate some of their music.
Yeah. Hearing you both live for the first time was a really cool experience. So anybody that hasn't heard you before, I'm a little jealous that you get to have that experience of hearing these guys for the first time, because it is a very unique and enjoyable, memorable live music experience. And it's not in a big arena. It's not in a big theater. It's going to be in a relatively intimate place, and it's a great way to make a connection. It really is. Now, Zeno, you mentioned KBS, Kentuckiana Blues Society. You you won the competition this year and last year, right?
My CD went last year.
Oh, okay. CD went last year. Okay. And so that puts you, that allows you to do what?
So I go down to Memphis for the International Blues Challenge. So there's around the world, there's, I don't know if it's 100 or 200. There's a ton of blues societies all over the world.
Mhm.
And they each hold regional contests, and then the winner of those gets sent down into Memphis, and they do it every year. It's on Beale Street, and you play up and down those bars there, and it's like a American Idol, but for amateur blues on Beale Street. It's very cool. It's a wonderful experience to be able to be a part to. This is my last year of eligibility because I've been before, so
yeah,
I'm excited to do it this year, and yeah, I can't wait.
Well, and you're doing a send-off show, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
the
Kentucky Blues Society. I'm actually also a board member of that society, and we're trying to foster a little bit more communication between societies around us.
Mm-hmm.
So the Central Kentucky Blues Society, which is based in Lexington, they are sending people down as well. And since I've been a couple times, I know I'm like, man, I wish. Basically, I want to give everybody a chance to kind of run through it again one more time before they go down. So it's like 3 days before I'm down in Memphis. We're having a place at Mercurio's in Louisville, which is a wonderful place for musicians. Everybody should check them out. They do a whole lot with Mr. Mercurio, who runs it, is very involved in MRF, the Musicians Emergency Relief Fund, which is very important for musicians who don't have stuff like health insurance if they run into some trouble. They're very, very generous, and they're very they care a whole lot about the music community here in Louisville.
Yeah.
But we're having a send-off show. We're inviting the Lexington guys, the people who won from the Louisville area. Actually, Lexington has a youth act as well, so we're showcasing all of them on Sunday. I think it's January 4th or 5th to go. It's the Sunday, whichever one that is, before we go down to Memphis. I'm real excited to host it. I hope it goes well.
Let's see. Let's pull up the calendar real quick. Make sure we get this
It's
right.
the 5th to have a show that day too.
It's the 5th.
Yeah. Earl and I always have shows the same day because I always want to go out and see Earl, and we have the same shows on almost every single time.
Well, that'll be great. We'll certainly make sure that anybody that follows us on social, they'll know that that's happening, and I'll plan on being there too. So if I'm not at Earl's show, one of the two, I don't know.
We'll go to mine and then go to his. I think his will probably. Mine's during the day, so it'll be later.
Oh, that'll be perfect. That'll be great. Go to that in the day and go see Earl that evening. So let's go to our next whiskey, and that would be just the other bottle that you have there. And this is a brand called Kentucky Peerless, and this is their Toasted Barrel Bourbon. And they've done, I think, 3 batches of this, and this is from batch 2 for whatever that's worth. But Kentucky Peerless was a brand back pre-Prohibition, and it hung around for a while and then went away. And then, gosh, maybe 9 years ago, one of the ancestors of the original Kentucky Peerless started it back up, and they've been making.
So it's part of the same. It's like a continuation of that same company. and the
Yeah,
same.
well, it was kind of a revival of that brand. Yeah.
Because that's interesting. Because like Falls City did that with beer, but it's not the
Mhm.
same
No.
thing, right? It's a whole. They bought the brand and brought that
Yes.
kind of back. It
Yeah.
had nothing to do with the
Yeah.
actual company.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, it's the brand name, but the brand name is from the current owner,
Right.
current owner's family. So there's a legit claim to it,
Good.
and they're in Louisville, I think, off 10th Street, if I remember correctly. At any rate, it's close to downtown, just on the other side of, well, the 9th Street divide, if you use that as a geographic locator. They have excellent tasting room, distill their own stuff, and great people that work there too. So cheers, fellas. Let's try this one.
Cheers.
So what do we think?
I have to taste it again. I should have saved some of the others so I could have tried those back to back.
Well, I think, yeah.
It's not like there's this. It's not the same type of flavor, but the it's like more of a char in this one as opposed to like that tobacco type.
Yes, definitely a char in this.
But it's interesting. It's just interesting in different bourbons when the flavors come out, and this one kind of comes out in the middle of the drink. It's not like it comes afterwards. It's in there while you're drinking it, as opposed to just an aftertaste.
Yep. I think there's probably a little more variety in the flavors in the Peerless, but I may like the Cigar Rye a little bit more, because I think the flavors that I do get from that they're nice and bold and warm, and they just feel good in my mouth. But again, local company, privately owned. They're not owned by a equity group or big foreign corporation. Support those guys. Support Buzzard, Roost. You can easily go downtown Louisville. If you're out of town, you're coming in for the Bourbon Trail. Very easy to visit Buzzard, Roost, Kentucky Peerless in the same visit. They're 3 blocks away from each other. So come support them. If you're looking for a special bottle for Christmas for somebody,
right?
Nothing against the big guys. It's all good stuff, but help out the local folks and let the person that your loved one enjoy a special whiskey from your hometown.
Well, I have people come in town all the time and they'll ask where should they go, and of course they always talk about wanting to hit the big ones. But yeah, I'm sure I did not know both of those were fully locally owned by those groups. So I will be I can definitely throw more people their way when they ask, because that's always more interesting than
Well, the big guys, if you go to their distilleries, it will be big. And you'll be taken on a tour by somebody that's probably a junior in college that doesn't know anything. And because I've been on plenty of bourbon tours, and I don't know if if you've ever watched Parks and Rec, and the kind of quote from Ron Swanson, I know more than you.
I know more than you. Yeah.
Yes. So that kind of comes into play a lot of the big places. The smaller places, you may have one of the distillers giving the tour.
Right.
So that's a very different experience. So support local. All right. So let's talk a little bit about early music, probably before you were playing music. Well, definitely before you were playing music. Earl, do you remember the first concert that you ever went to?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I had a feeling you were going to ask this question. I should have thought more about it. And because I can remember, like as a kid, the state fair always has those free concerts, and I definitely went to a couple of those. But to tell you who it was as like a little kid, I couldn't tell you. But I'll tell you the first concert I went to of a band that I actually cared about, like that I was like stoked to go see. I was like 14 or 15, and I went to see Blink 182 in in Cincinnati, and
Okay.
I was so stoked. It was, and now that's not really the kind of music I'm generally jamming on. But at 14 or so, I was
Yeah.
there were like reunion tour, and I went with my then girlfriend, and that was the first concert I remember going to about a band where I was like just like ecstatic
Yeah.
about, and I probably should have thought more about it so I didn't have to tell you it was that band, and I could have told you a different story.
There,
No, but yeah, that was definitely the first concert I went to where I was like, this is it. I'm at like a
yeah.
here.
There have been more than one guest on this show that's probably around your age that have said Blink 182 as either their
Good.
first
No,
concert
okay.
or first album, one of the two. So, yeah. Zeno, how about you? Remember your first concert?
It's funny that almost the exact same thing. My first one was probably at the state fair. I do not remember who. If I say the first band that I was like, I bought tickets to, and I was really, really stoked. Mine's worse than Earl's. I was a really big, real big Fish fan when I was like 16, 17. I was huge. I love ska music, and I think I drove like 4 hours away to go see them or something like that. Yeah.
Driving 4 hours to see Fish. That's something. That's something.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember the first album you ever bought?
Yes.
Yeah.
I bought, and I'm lucky because I also know the second, because my first one I bought, I was like 10 or something like that, and I bought Red Hot Chili Peppers Californication, which is very respectable. It's fine.
Yes.
But my second one is the Baja Men, Who Let the Dogs Out.
Okay.
So man, I really lucked out that I did those in that order.
You're the first with the Baja Man as an answer on that one. That's awesome. Oh wow. I hadn't thought about that in a long time. So thanks for putting that song in my head, Zeno.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it'll be about 10 years.
If you can figure out a way to do a cover of that, then you got something. Earl, how about you? First album?
I was thinking about this too because I've listened to your show, and I know I had a feeling you were going to ask these questions. So I'm pretty sure that it was "American Idiot" by Green Day, and I was like 10 or 11 years old, and I was like, I listened to that album like countless times.
Yeah.
Again, not a band I listen to much anymore, but when I was that age, I was all about it.
Well, for a fourth or fifth grader, that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, well, like I was the first. I might have been I might have been closer to 12, but whenever it came out when I was around that age.
Right,
So yeah, I was I don't know if mom knew that I was what I was listening to, but whatever.
Yeah. So Zeno, who did you listen to growing up that really got you into music? Maybe before you were playing anything, before you picked up a guitar, maybe. Who were the bands, who were the artists that really meant a lot to you and maybe you've hung on to through the years?
The one that meant the most, like as I was just kind of listening. You're growing up, you're just kind of listening to music, but you decide you're really going to listen to music and it means something. Was actually Bob Dylan, and the early Bob Dylan thing. I had a friend who was much more into music than I was, and I was kind of like telling him the stuff I wanted to listen to, and he basically said, "Hey, buddy, you need to listen to some Bob Dylan." So he just gave me, this was back when he just gave me his CD book with all his CDs in it, and he just gave that to me, and I held on to that thing for like 6 months, listening to all of his, to all the Bob Dylan stuff from like the 60s and early 70s. Yeah. And that changed my musical life for sure.
Yeah. There's some Dylan stuff that you could probably cover, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I tried to do a Tombstone Blues at one point. That one gets very tiring.
Well, first of all, it's a very long song. but
is.
it does fit. It's got that drum beat in it. Is definitely what you could do. Is there a favorite album or two?
It's either Highway 61 Revisited or it's Blood on the Tracks. Though I really like his live stuff. I think it's when you get to hear the most that Bob Dylan is a fantastic singer. He has a bad voice, but he is a fantastic singer. He is a wonderful singer, and he really gets to showcase that in his saying, or maybe it's an acquired taste voice, whatever you want to call it. But no one can deny that he's not a good singer if they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, it's part of Dylan being Dylan. Okay. If he had George Michael's voice, it wouldn't be the same. I don't think it would work. I don't think it would work. I love the early Dylan stuff too. Time Out of Mind is may not be my favorite Dylan album, but it's probably top 3 or top 5 easy. I don't know if you spent much time listening to that one, but it's incredibly good. So Dylan, I could see you doing some Dylan stuff. That would work. Yeah, absolutely. Earl, how about you? Who's kind of stuck with you through the years?
Yeah, honestly, like growing up, my parents had me when they were a little bit older, and so when in the car and whatnot, we always just listened to the oldie station. That was the only station we listened to. And so honestly, even though it might not sound like it, artists like Al Green and those kind of folks were big influences for me. I even though, like, if you listen to my music, that's not the first person you would think of. Certainly those kind of acts like the Four Tops, those kind of things, like anything that was on the oldie station was what I was listening to. And then if you're asking more about like inspiration kind of stuff, like what got me into doing music, a band called Sunday Best from Eastern Kentucky with Nicholas Jamerson is the lead singer, if you're familiar with him. Yeah, his band got what really inspired me to do music. I lived in Eastern Kentucky for 2 years when I went to school out there, and I got really into them. And Nick Jamerson, I'm still a big fan of. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't even be making music. He was that big influence to me.
You know, you say Al Green wouldn't be what you would necessarily think of, but and this isn't Al Green, but as I was listening to your music, one of the names that I wrote down was Joe Cocker.
That's funny that you say that. Yeah, because my this song "That's on Me" that we talked about briefly earlier. That song is heavily inspired by by him for sure. So, yeah.
So there's again, it's heavily.
Very. If you listen to "Feeling All Right," that's what the piano, the way he's playing that. That's exactly what I was going for on my guitar, or the way I was playing my acoustic. And so it's honestly it's the same chords. It's a different key.
Yeah,
you can sing my chorus right over his, and it fits. And so I ripped that song off big time.
That's exactly what I was thinking when. Well, I didn't think. Wow, he really ripped this off. But,
I mean, and even the background singer I hired, Gina from Sweet G and the Shine, if you're familiar with them, or Nick Dittmer has her as a backing singer as well. She does some backing vocals on that tune, and I hired her because I thought she kind of sounded like the backing singers on that song, and I was like, oh, that's the vibe I'm going for, and so I'm gonna hire her. I'm not trying to like rip off the whole song, but that was definitely a big influence. I feel like music's to share, and especially Zeno, we're the music genre we're in. There's a lot of the chords are all the same in every song, and so we just have to kind of not fly too close to the sun, I guess. But yeah. My mother-in-law is a copyright attorney. She'd probably be upset that I just said I ripped off that song, but I did.
Well, good. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So we've been talking about supporting local. So, and obviously, if you're in Louisville, you can support these guys. But regardless of where you are, there is local music, local musicians that you can support. That not knocking any of the big names, not if you want to go see the Foo Fighters, knock yourself out. If you want to, go see the Black Keys, who I kind of dissed earlier, that's fine too. I've seen them live when there were too many people up on the stage with them, but it's all good. Go do that, but support the bar that's a block and a half down the street from the arena. There's a guy that's playing, and he's singing his heart out or her heart out to sometimes I've been in places where if me and my wife didn't show up, there wouldn't have been anybody there.
Right.
So, but the musician still gave all they had and sang their own music from the heart. So I've got a list of things that I could think of as far as how people can support local music. I'd like to hear from you guys. How can people support you specifically, but local music in general?
Yeah, and so I feel like, I mean, the easiest way is if you are at a show is, I mean, you can always buy stuff. If there's stuff for sale, even if it's just a couple dollars, like all that goes back into the music. If you're not trying to spend any money, honestly, I always tell people the easiest way to support is if you like what you heard is just to give us a follow. And that sounds so simple and like it's worthless. But when you go to book shows, people do look at this stuff, and even it adds up. And sharing posts, if you're trying, again, not trying to do something that's very complicated, just hit share on someone's post, and that helps it get seen by more people. Those are easy things to do, but just going out, like you said, just going out, you might be the only person in the bar to see someone incredible. To be quite honest, I played a Christmas benefit just last weekend with some great artists. Cody Lee Meese closed out tonight, and I don't know if you know Cody, but he's considered one of the best in the whole state and beyond, both as a guitar player and a songwriter. And he played to 8 people, and I felt like I was seeing a private show that you shouldn't even be allowed to see. And
Right.
when you go out and support music, you'll see things, you'll see acts like Zeno, and you'll be blown away. And you will not be disappointed if you support your local music scene. Just going to a show is really all you need to do if you're just to do anything, is just go.
Yeah. Zeno, anything to add?
I would say one thing I think we should really look to support is there are certain venues. A lot of places have music, and all music is legitimate. If someone is just playing cover tunes at a bar, they're just as much. They're probably more of a musician than I am. They could probably name what chords they're playing and know what key they're in at all times. So I'm not dissing them at all. But there are certain places that host original music that are more like venues. And so if you're looking to go out and listen to music, maybe that would be my advice, was to find support places that are doing that, because those places can only survive if people are supporting them. There are draws in bars that have cover artists in them, that usually there's people there already and they're just kind of partying, their kind of background music. But if you can go to a show where someone's playing their original tunes for you, it's a really big deal. And then for me personally, if I'm playing one of my faster songs like Upton Blues, Kevin, like you said, if I'm really going fast on my feet, if someone could just let out a big like yeah while I'm doing that, I would run through hell for that. So that's the best way to support me personally.
I like it. Yeah. So I think all that is absolutely clearly on point. But part of it is listen. Spotify is both heaven and hell in a lot of ways. It's great because anybody around the world can listen to your music, but you're not going to get rich with Spotify at the helm. So it's a cut. It kind of cuts both ways, but do listen and do follow, and that'll make it, like I think Earl, you said that people that are booking venues, they look at that stuff. Follow on social media, share posts, comment on posts, go to shows, buy tickets, buy merch, and you know, a lot of the times you guys are playing places where there may not even be a cover, so you leave a tip and you buy a CD for $10 or something like that, and you know, you've had what I would consider a much better experience for probably a tenth of what you would have paid to go see something at the Yum Center. And just, you know, when you're sitting around the house and you're trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do this weekend? Look up a local venue and just go, whether it's one of these guys or somebody else in your hometown, whether that's, you know, St. Louis or Kansas City or Nashville or Cincinnati or wherever you may roam. There's somebody somewhere playing music in a small venue or a bar that's going to blow you away at how good they are. You're going to walk away very impressed. You're going to have a good time, and you're going to support somebody that, you know, will appreciate the encouragement and appreciate you being there. Taylor Swift does not care that you were at her show. Not knocking Taylor Swift, but you know, there's 20,000 people in that arena. She doesn't care that you were there. You go see either of these guys, they're going to know you were there and they're going to appreciate that you were there. So,
well, Kevin, one more thing I just thought of while you were, as you were kind of saying that, you know, Earl and I are, I guess, I don't know what level you would put us at, Earl. We're established amateurs. I don't know. Like, you and I can get shows. Mm-hmm. We can do that. But from what I remember, if you want to like have a burgeoning scene pop up, something that somebody can do if they're interested in, and do something in kind of a more unique way that would help from kind of the ground level, go to an open mic and listen. Like Katie did its open mic. I went to the one that she holds on Flanagan's on Thursdays. Mm-hmm. I was blown. I went like last or second to last, and I was really worried because of the quality and the variety of songwriting and performance that came up. You know, people are just playing 3 songs and they're done. If you are a fan of music and you want to support and you want to talk about some unique experiences, there was a guy playing, I forget his name. It was fantastic. He was playing the mandolin with a violin bow, and it sounded so good. It was wow. So good, and it was. I mean, it was going to an open mic is free, and they happen all the time. But there's so much variety, and it's very, very homegrown talent that is there, and that would be one way if you were a fan of music and you want something different to do, go check one of those out.
For sure.
Yeah. Dusty Bo, you guys know Dusty?
Oh yeah, I've played with. Yeah, Dusty's played with my band before.
Oh really? Oh,
yeah,
that would be fun to see.
Yes.
Dusty's hosted an open mic for the last several months at Tin Roof.
Yep.
And I, you know, first time I went, I thought, okay, well, I'll support Dusty, but because there's like a 2-hour open mic section, and then he'll always have some featured guest or that'll play an extended set. But I've just been blown away at how good and how talented the open mic people are, and they're playing their own stuff, and these people are writing some incredible songs, and they're just fantastic musicians, and it's open mic. You know,
you saw Vincent Gleason out there, right? Is that
yes?
Yeah, he's one of the best around for like his songs are incredible. The way he picks the guitar is like nobody else. But I mean, yeah, those are the people that are at these open mics. They're not. Sometimes when you think of an open mic, you think of people doing just there can be some bad connotations about open mics,
right.
and if you see them on the way they're depicted on television and whatnot, but in real life, the open mics are incredible. Like that's where right. I started at the open mics that Katie did. It's open mic. That's where I went to my first thing I ever did. But yeah, Vincent's incredible. Him and I, we've done things together. But yeah, I'm glad you said that, Zeno, because I'm very glad you're on here because you're so much more articulate than I am, and so I feel like we have a good balance of my ramblings and your wise speech. So thank you. But yeah, open mics are where it's at. If you're interested in playing at all, even a little bit, go to an open mic, go watch one, and then come out the next time. Bring your guitar, bring your voice, do whatever you do because you will have a great time.
Everyone's so friendly.
They're incredibly.
It is crazy how friendly everybody is.
That's how. If it wasn't for those people, yeah, I mean, I would never have felt support. I'm very shy, and I would never have done stuff if I didn't go and people are like talk to you and tell you that you're good and you should come back and act not in a. And no one's ever been condescending. Everyone's very just so honestly friendly, and it's a hard thing to beat a group of people like that. And if you go, the community and it is a community. It's like a family, and it is incredible, and you should definitely go check it out. If you haven't gone to one of Katie's open mics, you got to go check.
No,
it
I
out.
haven't. I need to do that. So I'm glad you mentioned it because again, well, I was at one open mic. This was probably pre-COVID, but it was at a bar that I won't mention. But it was an open mic both for musicians and stand-up comedians, and that was torturous.
Yeah. I can't say anything about comedians. I will say for musicians, we all had a lot of time to practice during COVID, so that was before COVID. Now we're all much better.
Now everybody's good. But yes, open mic is an absolutely great way to do that, and just somebody that has maybe performed in front of people a handful of times and maybe playing a song that they wrote 2 days ago, to see people there and applauding their work is, I can only imagine how encouraging that is. So, we'll start wrapping this up, guys. Want to make sure everybody knows where to find you guys on social media. Zeno, you're on Instagram, I know.
Yes. That's about it.
Yeah, you got a website.
I do have a website, yeah.
ZenoJones.com, so be sure to check that out. You post your shows and what's going on and all that good stuff on your social?
On my website, and then when I remember, I post them on Instagram or Instagram stories, but I do not always remember.
Okay. Yeah, I've not met an independent musician yet that enjoys the social media part of the job.
I've left more social media since playing music than during the course of playing music. I keep leaving places. Instagram's the only one I've left on.
Well, all right. Well, I'll post whatever you're doing on mine. So how about that? And then Earl, you're at on Instagram.
Yeah, everything at Earl Bowman Music.
Yep. So, and again, we'll share everything that you've got going on too. When's your next show, Earl?
January 5th. I'm playing at the Whirling Tiger with a band called Low Gap and Jace Turley. So it should be cool.
That's a great room.
Oh, I love the Tiger. I've played there a few times. It's always good. Sounds great. It's definitely one of my favorite places to play around town.
Yeah. And you've got a new single coming out, Wannabe, and on the 27th?
On the 27th, and then there'll be a single coming out probably every month leading up to my album coming out. It'll either be, depends on when I finally pull the trigger on ordering these records, when the album will actually come out. Because but it's coming this spring.
Okay, spring of 2025.
And if you come to a show, you can buy the album. Talk about why come to a show. You can buy an album that isn't even out yet. So come to a show, buy one. It's just, give me a few dollars and I'll give you one.
That's right. I've got one actually. Yeah. And Zeno, you've got a show coming up on the 5th of January also.
And I have. So I play on the 15th of December. This will come out after that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then. On the 3rd of January, I play at Frankfurt Avenue Liquors and Wine.
Yeah,
a pretty good bourbon bar. And I'm there like the first Friday of every month. So
You've got to rattle the walls of that place. They're probably
do.
worried about bottles falling off the shelves
They,
because the acoustics in there are different.
I mean, it's all concrete walls and
Yeah.
floors. Let's say I have it dialed in after a lot of feedback from the staff and the audience. So, yeah.
Okay, so January 3rd at Frankfurt Avenue Liquors, and then the 5th at Mercurio's. Is that right?
Right. Fifth
Yeah.
of the Heroes.
That'll be great. And any new music planned right now? Releasing
sorry?
anything new? Releasing anything new? Any plans in the
No, I have
works?
an album almost all the way planned out. I just need to find someone to. I don't take long to record. I record in about. My last one took about 3 hours, so that's all I need, and then it's a matter of getting it all together and everything. But I hope to have one. I should have one this coming year.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. As for our show, again, you can watch us on YouTube and see these wonderful fellas. You can listen to us on your favorite podcast platform, as long as it's Apple, Spotify, or Google. We have a Facebook page where we release all of our shows, including this one. We have a Facebook group where we'll post what we're listening to and what we're drinking while we're listening to it. And we'll post things about Earl and Zeno and Buzzard's Roost and Kentucky Peerless and all of your other favorites. So be sure to follow along and have a good time with us. So, Earl, Zeno, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate it. Had a great time talking with you.
Thank you.
Hope
Thank
you
you.
enjoyed it as well. So, on behalf of Zeno and Earl and myself, until next time, cheers, love, and free bird. Yeah, you need to work some Skinner in there, Zeno. That'd be good.